All right, so I was dying to talk about this over the Thanksgiving break. Big story by Zach Lowe and Adrian Wojnarowski on November 23rd, the beginning of last week, about the NBA. Was talking with the Players Association, with their broadcast partners, about really shaking up the league calendar, which is something, as you know, if you've read me or if you've listened to this podcast, I have been passionate about for the last 12 years. I, way back in the day, called it the Entertaining as Hell tournament, which was basically, I think it was 14 teams made the playoffs, and then the other 16 had a single elimination tournament for the last two spots. Since then, I've tweaked it, I've changed it. Last year in this podcast, had a whole bunch of new ideas for it. But this story really made it seem like this is something that could be happening, where they're shortening the regular season to 78 games, where you're talking about reseeding teams in the semifinals based on regular season record, talking about a play-in game for the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds, trying to get the last two seeds heading into the playoffs. All of these different things. And one of the things that was in here was a mid-season tournament. Post-Thanksgiving, extending into mid-December, something like that, or late January, February tournament that would head into All-Star Weekend. One of those two, the idea has been batted around and has never worked. All right, so why hasn't it worked? Why hasn't this idea caught on? Here's the problem. There's no incentives for the players. I've heard money getting thrown around. Well, these players already make a ton of money. It's not going to excite them if there was a $20 million prize for the winning team. I don't know if that, I know it sounds crazy, but I don't know if that is enough of an incentive for some of these guys to do the wear and tear of a tournament like that. I've heard people talk about a lottery pick. Well, if I'm Kawhi Leonard, what do I care if the Clippers get a lottery pick? That's just somebody that can take my job or force me to get traded, or who knows? Like, these guys don't care about anything other than getting through the playoffs and winning the title. And in my opinion, that's how you would have to incentivize them. All right. So how do you do that? Well, here was my idea. And I should mention, I think this story getting leaked out was a half full of shit move by Adam Silver. And I mean that in the most endearing way possible. I think something Stern was really good at, and I used to make fun of him about it all the time, was late September, early October, he would do some crazy thing that got people talking for 2 weeks, whether it was like the dress code or God knows what. I think Silver was trying to do it with this story, especially heading into Thanksgiving. From the people I've talked to, this was something, they talked about all these different alternatives 2 months ago, the Board of Governors meeting. And it hasn't really had any momentum at all since then. And I think some people in the league were a little surprised that this story came out. But look, this is a good thing ultimately, because this leads to an idea that I actually think would work really well. Like, I'm actually excited about this idea because it solves a lot of issues. All right, what are the issues? One, the season is too long. We can all agree on that. Ideally, you want the season to be, 70, 72 games, something like that. Everyone I've talked to in the NBA, they've said, we can't lose 12 games. We can't replace the money. We just can't. It's too much money. We could lose maybe 2 home games where it drops to 78. You could maybe lose the 2 if you replace it with some other source of income. But these guys are all rich for a reason. They're not just going to give away money if they don't have to. So you have to incentivize it a little bit differently. My first goal is to get to 72 games for the regular season. I think that solves a bunch of different problems. For one thing, the schedule, it works out perfectly. You'd play everybody in your own conference 3 times. You'd play everybody in the other conference twice. And you're done. Great. 72 games. Well, unfortunately, we're lopping off a lot of money with that. We have to replace it. How do we replace it? How about a mid-season tournament? Okay, well, what are the incentives? How do we get these guys to care? Here's how you get them to care. At the 35 game mark, we have the Russell Cup in New York City. You like that idea, Kyle? The Russell Cup?
It's a good name.
Named after Bill Russell, not Russell Westbrook.
Of course.
The top 14 teams by record are invited to the Russell Cup. And the top seeds in each conference get a bye. They are automatically advanced to round 2. So now we have 3 against 14, 4 against 13, on down the line. All right, so first round, it's worth 1 win. Now we get to the second round. There's only 8 teams left. That's also worth 1 win. We get to the semifinals. Now there's 4 teams left. It's worth 2 wins. It's a double game. We get to the finals. The last 2 teams standing. That's worth 4 wins. Plus the 31st pick in the draft. That's a little added bonus. Okay, so what do I mean by 4 wins, 2 wins, all that stuff? I'm saying we take the regular season record of these teams. So let's say the Celtics finish 50-22, but they win the Russell Cup. You add 7 wins from the Russell Cup because winning the Russell Cup is worth 7 wins. You add that to their record. So instead of 50-22, you really become 57-22. Now, you're going to say this gets complicated. Now nobody has the same things. You know how hockey, you look at the hockey standings, and the hockey standings are like 10 columns long, and there's all these different records in there, and you don't know what the fuck's going on? That's kind of what we need to do with the NBA. So if the Celtics go 50-22, we have the regular season, we have that whole standings the way they would normally look, and then you have a separate thing to the right of it where it has your tournament record for the midseason. So you'd have 7 points. The most you get is 7 points. The second most you get if you made the finals but you didn't win is 4 points. So you'd have those points next to it with a total number of points for all your wins. So if the Celtics have 50 wins, then you have the next column in the standings at 7, and then total points 57, that becomes their regular season quote unquote record. And that's how we would decide who would make the playoffs. In my opinion, this would force these guys to actually care and take this seriously. So I'm taping this on a Monday right now. The Bucks are 17-3. The Celtics are 14-5. But if the Celtics won this midseason tournament and you added 7 hypothetical wins to their record, and that 14-5 suddenly becomes a 21-5, that's a pretty good advantage over Milwaukee, especially if you have the winning percentage. Now Milwaukee would really have to catch up. The point is, I think these teams would actually care about the cup because they only have to win 4 games. And if you space them out, it's over like the course of 8 or 9 days, however long it has to be. There's real reasons to win it. And maybe you throw in the cash thing, $10 million or $5 million, whatever it is. Like you want to wet their beak, so to speak, little Godfather 2 term. But I think this would actually work. Now think about, we're at like the 30 game mark. Only 14 teams can get into the tournament. We'll be talking about it. There's going to be some teams on the bubble. We're going to be wondering who can get the top seed in each conference so they get the bye in round 1, which is basically a free win. It'll be a conversation starter. That's right around when we start getting bored with the NBA about just the narratives and stuff around game 28, game 29, where it's like, all right, who's on the All-Star team? And then everybody writes their All-Star game column and does their whole thing. Now we'd actually be like, holy shit, the Russell Cup is coming. Who's going to get the 1 seed? Who's going to make it? What are these matchups going to be like? And by the way, if you think this is stupid, you're full of shit, because if this was on TV, you're watching it. If we spread this out over the course of a week, and this is on all the time, and it's all leading to, the semifinals is the Clippers and the Lakers in one bracket and Dallas against Milwaukee in the other one. And Dallas has upset a couple teams and all these wins are at stake. And this could actually affect the standings. That's a real thing that I think would work. All right, so what do we do with the other 16 teams? Well, they're playing in the Chamberlain Cup. You know why he named it the Chamberlain Cup? Because he won 9 less titles than Bill Russell. Yeah, that's why. The bottom 16 teams by record, first 3 rounds are worth 1 win each, and then the finals are worth 2 wins, plus the 32nd pick. So that could actually, you get a high second round pick, plus the chance to gain a little momentum. These games, in my opinion, you take these and you sell them to like DAZN or ESPN Plus. This is like just perfect content for these streaming services that need content. Hey, maybe HBO Max gets involved. Who the fuck? Disney Plus? Oh yeah, maybe you should get involved too. Somebody's going to want these, even though they're the worst teams. You stagger them in ways so that they're never competing against the Russell Cup. And we just do this for like 10, 11 days. And now there's real stakes and there's double wins and quadruple wins. And I don't know. I think it would work. Now, here's the other wrinkle. because we want people to care about this entire season and we want real stakes. Russillo's going to hate this idea. I don't care. You know that play-in tournament where they talk about 7, 8, 9, 10? I want to go deeper. I want higher stakes. How about this? Only the top 5 seeds in each conference are guaranteed playoff spots. And if you're not a top 5 seed, guess what? Got a little thing called a play-in game for you. You want to make the playoffs? You're the 6th seed. You were on the cusp. You didn't quite get in. You didn't get one of those top 5 spots. Well, you got to play the 11th seed to get in. You get to host the game. That's the fun part. 6 versus 11, 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. 6 games total. Single elimination. And that's it. Guess what? If you anybody who watches The Challenge on MTV, still one of the great institutions in television history. Everybody is very focused on not ending up in the elimination thing at the end of the show. Because you know what can happen in the elimination thing? It's 50-50. You never know. You might get clipped by a puzzle. You might be in some game where you have to, it's a physical game and you go against somebody bigger than you. All the strategy, all the drama of this show is avoiding that 50-50 contest at the end. And that would be the same thing for the playoffs here. If we're only guaranteeing 5 playoff spots in each conference, people can't fuck around in the regular season anymore. I'm sorry. The Clippers, the load management thing, you can't do the load management as much if you're worried about, oh man, we might not be a top 5 team because who saw this Dallas thing coming? And now there's 6 good teams in the West and we got to get our shit together. Kawhi, I'm sorry. I know your knee hurts, but you're going to have to play tonight. I think it would completely change the mechanics of how the teams in the top 5 or 6 operated. I don't think they'd be able to rest guys as much. On top of it, it's a 72-game schedule anyway, so we'd have less games. I think the quality of play would go up. So that'd be one good thing. And then the other thing is from a tanking standpoint, instead of just 8 playoff teams in each conference, and then basically if you're not going to make the playoffs, you just throw your season away and you start losing games intentionally and doing all the other terrible stuff we've seen. Now it's like if you have a chance to get a 9, 10, or 11 spot, which is really a group of about, 5 or 6 teams in each conference, they'd have to take that seriously. Why wouldn't you try to make it? What's wrong with trying to make the playoffs? It's not going to affect whatever your lottery record was because that's still done by record, whatever. But now you have this little carrot at the end. Think about LeBron James and the Lakers last year. LeBron could have come back. They could have been a 10 seed or an 11 seed potentially, maybe even a 9 seed. But he just shut it down because what was his incentive? Well, if there was the carrot of, well, you could actually make the playoffs and be in this play-in game. First of all, what a nightmare for the 6 seed where it's like, holy shit, we got to play LeBron, one game, winner takes all. But it also makes it really hard to shut guys down. And it makes it much harder not to do the right thing. So that's why I would guarantee the top 5 seeds in each conference. I would really weigh the wins in these midseason tournaments. And you'd put real stakes because the goal of all of this is, how do we win the title? How do we not beat our players into the ground? How do we space the season out in a really fun way that keeps everybody's interests? And how do we have these little breaks and hiccups? I think it would be really fun. I think this is the only way you could do a midseason tournament. I don't think paying the players, rewarding them with lottery picks, all that stuff works. But if you weigh the wins in the tournaments at midseason, that has some great benefits. And if you cut down the number of guaranteed playoff seeds, people can't just shut it off when they want to. That would be the goal of it, right? As always, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. You can email us at themailbag@theringer.com. I feel pretty strongly about this idea, though. Kyle, would you rather go to the Russell Cup in New York or would you rather go to the Chamberlain Cup in Vegas? A little seedier.
Vegas, huh?
Little seedier, lower stakes.
Yeah, I had a great time at Summer League, so I'd say I'll go to the Chamberlain Cup.
Chamberlain Cup will be, the Russell Cup will be like where all the establishment is.
Yeah.
And the Chamberlain Cup will be kind of the underground.
Might run into Oak there.
It's Vegas. There's probably something bad will happen at some point. There'll be some incident. So that's my idea. The Russell Cup, the Chamberlain Cup, Midseason tournaments at the 35 game mark. Only 5 playoff spots guaranteed in each conference. 72 game regular season. And I think we're good. Thank you. And please drive through. And now it's time for the State Farm Safe Bet of the Week. The team you can count on. Just like football, life can be unpredictable. That's why State Farm agents are there to help with over 19,000 agents. Wow. A local State Farm agent could be just around the block, whether you talk in person, by phone, or through the app. State Farm is there. Go with the one with coverage and agents you can count on. You know who I can count on right now? The Tennessee Titans. They've done really well for me the last couple weeks. Since they've replaced Marcus Mariota for Ryan Tannehill, they lost 16-0 to Denver in week 6. And since then, they've been a house of fire. They've only lost once. They beat Kansas City. Last week, they go in Indianapolis. Everything's going wrong for them in the first half. Henry fumbles on the first drive. Tannehill fumbles later in the first half. Doesn't matter. They come back at 17-17 after the third quarter, and they just take over the game in the fourth. They win by 14. I think they're a playoff team, and I think they think they're a playoff team. That's the thing that's been startling to me. They have a lot of confidence right now, and you can make a case. Not only should they be one of the wildcard teams, or you can make a case they have Houston week 15, Houston week 17, that they can still steal the AFC South. So you look at this Raiders game this week, possible trap game. Raiders have looked terrible the last 2 weeks. They've gotten killed. They lost 74-12 the last 2 weeks. They have only scored 29 points in the last 3 weeks. But here's the thing. They were 6-4 a couple weeks ago. They're still kind of in the wild card hunt. It's hard for it to be a trap game if it's also a meaningful season on the line game for Oakland. I think Tennessee shows up this week. I think they prove to everybody that they are a playoff team. And I think we're going to look at those Houston games, week 15, week 17, as games that Tennessee could take the division in. So there you go. State Farm. Talk to an agent today and trust the Tennessee Titans. All right. You know things are bad with the Knicks when we bring Concepcion on. Jason Concepcion.
That's right. Host
of NBA Desktop.
That's right.
For The Ringer, as well as co-host of Binge Mode, plowing through Star Wars. Mallory is like between Lamar and Mandalorian. She's
never had it better in her life. This is her peak.
It really is. It feels like Apex Mallory.
It's unbelievable. She's walking around on a cloud. She had members of her coaching staff of her favorite team walking through the halls on Friday, and it was amazing. And she gets to watch Lamar crush the world.
After Game of Thrones ended, we all worried about her physical well-being, her sanity, all these things. And now she's just rejuvenated. Yeah. Now I'm worried about your physical well-being and sanity. The Knicks.
I've been through this. It's fine. Let's talk about it.
People
act like, they get on me on Twitter. Hey, you can't say anything because the Knicks have been terrible for 20 years. It's never stopped me from saying anything before. I'm fine. I've seen this before.
We did, for the Book of Basketball podcast, a couple months ago, we taped it. One of the last great Knick moments ever. We're going to run it in a couple weeks. LJ's 4-point play. We did a rewatchables about that game. It's 20 full years ago.
Crazy talk.
And arguably since then, there's only been a couple highlights. But I want to talk specifically about
let's do it.
Just what happened the last 2 years. Because, you win 54 games in 2013. You have puncher's chance. That Pacers series goes sideways. The next year, it drops to 37. The year after that, it drops to 17 wins. 32 wins, 31 wins, 29 wins, 17 wins last year. But it was all leading to Durant and Kyrie coming, and then they didn't come. And the way the team responded is what I want to talk about, because it's not just about not getting those guys. It's not just about a culture of fear and incompetence and losing and all that.
Sure.
All these moves are related in this crazy way.
They're all related.
Let's go back a year ago. They stretched Joakim Noah's deal.
Right.
They do this and people are like, oh, they're getting KD and Kyrie. Why else would you do this? Well, he could have been in 2020 expiring this year. Would have been nice.
It would have been fine. It doesn't move the needle that much. It would have been nice. Yes.
It's all part of this bigger picture.
Yes.
He counts on the cap 6.4 this year, 6.4 next year. 6.4 in 2021-22. So now you're already operating with 6% less of cap in the year that you're trying to get Giannis and all these guys allegedly. Then you trade Porzingis, Hardaway, and Lee to Dallas for 2 firsts, Dennis Smith Jr., and some expiring contracts. Couple issues here. You badly, I say you like you were the Knicks GM.
It's fine. I get it.
You overrate DSJ and really overrate the part where...
Well, I mean, sure. Go on. Sorry.
Well, you overrate Dallas's desperation to get rid of him to start the Luka era.
Yeah, I think that, listen, I was against that trade.
You were unhappy.
I was unhappy for various reasons. One, I'd like to see somebody actually, I'd like to see someone actually sign the qualifying
with the Knicks.
Yeah, I'd like to. And the number one thing I think that you're getting at that I want to cut right to the heart of is this. The Knicks are not a free agency destination for top tier free agents. They're not a place that top tier free agents are looking to go. Last summer should have absolutely proved that in anybody's minds. If people are looking, if Knicks fans and the Knicks front office are looking ahead to Giannis, what they need to do is show that they can be a normal team that drafts good players, develops them, and then molds those players into something like a cohesive team that doesn't necessarily need to like set the world on fire, but needs to show that the basic building blocks of a good team are there so that good players can come in and it's like plug and play. The Knicks aren't doing that. Like, top tier free agents don't want to come here. So what you have to start from ground zero and build the team up from the bottom level.
And the only real advantage you would have in that situation is lottery picks.
Yes.
Where they were in this situation with Porzingis, but they weren't because they traded him before they even got in the situation. You have this window with young guys where it's like, we're the only ones who can make you rich here for about a year. And if you don't take our money, now there's risk. You might get hurt, all this stuff. But here's a lot of money. Just take it. And now we have you for at least a couple more years. They squandered that with the Porzingis thing. And the real issue is they really under-evaluated Luka because you have an unprotected 2021 pick and you have a top 10 protected 2023 pick. But now it's like, well, the Mavs are one of the top 8 teams in the league.
I mean, to be fair, Luka was obviously a elite prospect as a teenager coming out of the second best league in the world. That said, what he's doing now is like unheard of. Nobody thought he had this gear in him.
Maybe
this
not
early
right
in his
away.
Career. Yeah, not this early.
But as a rookie, it was like,
yeah.
all right, this guy's definitely something.
I agree. I think the trap you kind of get into as a Knicks fan is like you can take some of these moves out in isolation and go, oh, this trading Porzingis makes sense considering the environment and the chaos surrounding him and the fact that he wanted to go
and he hated it there.
Hated it there. But it's like you need to go to the root. Why did he hate it there? You know, you know what I mean? It's like, yes, I wish he didn't do that and act like such a scumbag and forcing his way out. And I wish the Knicks also would have held the line a little stronger and been like, let's, try and at the very least extract more resources from Dallas. But at the bottom line is, why is it that players don't want to be there? Let's figure that out. Because that's the problem from which all the other problems stem. And everything else is just trying to basically patch the hole in the boat. And all that stuff Julius Randle and other players on short contracts. Yeah, that makes sense for right now. Develop our young players. Okay, that makes sense for Fizdale, who is liked by LeBron and others. That makes sense right now. But as a whole, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because they're still thinking of themselves as this top tier free agency destination, big market, blah, blah, blah.
Because it's New York.
Because it's New York.
But meanwhile, 2010, 2014, 2016, 2018. Just whiffs galore, except for Amari, who showed up and his knee was gone in 40 games.
Because we would take him with an uninsured knee. So it's like,
I hated the Porzingis trade when it happened. We did an emergency podcast. We all killed it. We were like, what the fuck are they doing? It's actually worked out worse than we thought because at least you had the sliver of hope that Luka wasn't going to be what he is now for a couple years. But now he's that right away. So that even that 21 pick, it was like, well, at least that'll be a lottery pick. That's now not going to be a lottery pick.
That's tough.
All right, so you have that. Last summer, they strike out on everybody. Part of the problem with that Porzingis trade is you dump your other two contracts. It's like, well, now we got cap space.
Right, we got him.
This is the Porzingis
Sign
thing
guys.
is leading to Katie and Kyrie. You don't get any of those. Then another thing we killed on the Ringer all over the place, they just spend all the cap space. Here's what they got. Bobby Portis, Taj Gibson, Julius Randle, Marcus Morris, Wayne Ellington, Reggie Bullock, Elfrid Payton for $77 million.
Again, in isolation, I think if you look at it as a response to, okay, we struck out on the free agency, no big deal. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to reload with guys who are pretty good on contracts that are not egregious. And then all of a sudden, hey, if a contender or a bubble contender comes around later in the season and they need a guy, we got all these guys. And also, it's not hurting us long term with these. But like the knock on effect is now you got all these guys who are playing for their next contract.
Right.
So like players who already had a tendency to just be like out for their numbers are now like incentivized to be out for their numbers. And then what's going to happen like in a couple of years? Now we're just going to be hoping that another free agent comes. It's like concentrate on the draft, develop Frank, Mitch, young players, RJ, and Knox, and hope
Knox who got a DMP last week.
I mean, Knox has been tough.
So I had so many issues with how they spent that money. For one thing,
on four
Randall, on four guys who basically play the same position, and there was like there's some weird Knicks defenders on Twitter, and they were like, "Well, actually, Bobby Portis can play center, and Randall and Marcus Morris can play power, small forward." It's like, okay, fine, but that's not going to work. Randall and Morris, I would say, are two of the top 7 ball stoppers in the league. I had to watch Morris the last couple of years. He's competitive. I liked him. He gets the ball stops. You give Randall the ball stops. And if you watch the Knicks this year, one of the reasons they're 4-17,
it's
just guys standing around.
Who's passing? It's a huge issue. And it's like not really any of anyone's fault. It's just you have that many guys who are already ball stoppers who are now playing for their next deal. What do you think they're going to do? And it's like you have them. It's like man, if you have any of those guys on the floor at the same time, which you have to have sometimes, it's tough. It's tough to watch them. They will just ISO out and dribble it out. And it's like, listen, I don't think
Rando just everything stops. And I actually like Rando. I just think on the right team, he could be a real asset. On this team, it's bad.
Just, you can't have like 3 other guys like Randall all trying to do Randall stuff on the team. And then it's like, listen, I don't love Fizdale. I have issues with him as well. But it's like, they handed him this squad and they're like, go win with this.
4 point guards, 5 power forwards.
Yeah, like, and it's that to me is insane. Like, who convinced Jim Dolan that this was a competitive, good team? Like on paper.
Well, the Peyton thing was underrated, bizarre, because they already had so many poor point guards. So short term for this year, and we were saying this last summer, you can listen to anything we did. The one advantage they had once these guys spurned them was like, okay, we're your way station now.
Right.
Are you worried about the luxury tax? Do you have to get rid of a contract to accommodate trade? Right. We're here.
Park your money here. Park it here.
So you're talking about stuff like, OKC's, they trade Westbrook for Chris Paul. They get 2 first-round picks for it, but they don't want Chris Paul. Right. It's like, well, what do we do with this guy now? And the Knicks could have had $80 million to be like, we have an idea. Just give him to us. We'll take him. Throw in a pick too. That'll be great. So you have that. You have Miami's trying to dump Whitesides last year. I'm not a Whiteside fan. I'd rather have Whiteside than Bobby Portis and Elfrid Payton. Especially if you're throwing me a pick.
The Chris Paul thing is interesting just because, like, listen, are you trying to rehabilitate your image in the league? Why not get one of these players who, yes, he's old and don't expect to compete with him or be relevant. But if you can just kiss his ass for the length of his contract so that he's like, you know what, the Knicks treated me pretty good.
Yeah.
That is, you're killing a bird with one stone right there. You're getting a good player, and you're hopefully rehabilitating your
You're getting a leader.
Image. You're getting a leader, and you're rehabilitating your image with amongst good players in the league, which is like could not be lower. Good players don't want to come to the Knicks.
So the Knicks fans would say, No, Chris Paul, that's stupid. He's got 3 years left on his deal. That last year is 38 million, 44 million, whatever it is.
It's legitimately a lot of money.
Guess what? You're not signing a free agent anyway. Guess who's not coming to the Knicks? Giannis.
He's not coming. Stop. Like
He's not. Stop.
I can already sense it coming. You know, like where it's by the end of this season, all of a sudden it's going to be the drumbeat of, oh, he's coming. And like, oh, like they'll sign one of his brothers or something, like, you know, like one of those, like the DeAndre Jordan signing from last year with the Knicks, where it's like, oh, he's close with Kyrie. Let's get him on the.
Yeah, that worked out great.
Yeah, it worked out great. They'll sign, you know, his brother and maybe one of his friends, and then like hire his personal chef and give him a restaurant, like and it won't work again. But I can see it coming.
Here's my advice on that. Do the opposite. Don't hire anybody who knows the players, because I think part of the problem with having DeAndre last year was the Knicks are so effed up that he was there for 2 months and he was probably on the phone with KD and Kyrie going, they're in a group FaceTime. He's like, don't come here. It's terrible.
There's no question. But I will say that they boomeranged on them, because I think, you know, I think the reason that they insisted on him going to Brooklyn was they didn't realize he was washed, because like, oh, he's playing on the Knicks. He was probably just coasting. And then they get him and they're like, oh, I think he is actually washed. It was
the DeAndre tax.
Yes.
On top of no KD for a year. So you can end up with the enigma that is Kyrie.
It's
Good luck with that.
One of the few things that I am taking solace in right now in New York area basketball.
Yeah.
Is that occurrence.
So you had, I mean, here's some other ones you could have had. Phoenix had to dump TJ Warren for reasons that remain unclear. They were just giving him away for free. Could have had him for $11 million.
I agree, but it's like, that's another thing where like, at least take on guys who aren't like, maybe have problems. Like the Knicks culture is so bad.
What's his problem? That he scores 26 points against good teams?
I don't know.
How about the Clips got Mo Harkless for nothing? They got him for free?
That would have been nice.
The Lakers, they had to dump Mo Wagner. They just gave him to the Wizards. Here, take him.
KOC fan Mo Wagner. I do like him.
Minnesota would have panic dumped Wiggins last year if anybody wanted him.
The Wiggins thing, let's let it go. Let's let it go for a little longer.
He's available.
I know. I need to see that happen a little longer. I need to see that continue throughout the season before I believe that it's not like a Flip Murray situation.
But what's crazy to me is we have now like a 15 to 20 year track record of how to do this.
No,
not even with the Knicks. Of just for teams. Like,
sure,
if you strike out on free agents and you have some good young players,
sure,
bottom out,
sure,
use the cap space to take other teams' problems away and get some assets.
This is what normal teams do. That's what normal teams do.
Normal teams.
And they've been doing it a long time. It's not flashy. It doesn't get headlines, but it does work. And I just wish it's like, when will they start acting like a normal team? It's hard to say. I thought Knicks fans really thought that last season, they're kind of normal now. This is, okay. Perry and Mills, they seem like they know what they're doing. It's like they're level-headed. Maybe they're just going to build, and it falls apart once again.
One of the issues, they didn't even clear out there's this misnomer now that all of these contracts are 1-year contracts.
Yeah,
it's not true. Randall, Ellington, Gibson, Bullock, and Payton are $48.6 million next year. The only ones you're getting rid of after this year are Portis and Morris. If you throw in Noah's dead money, that's $55 million for all of those guys. They're at $92 million guaranteed next year. So people are like, well, it's fine. It's only this year. It's like, no, it's not. You're also screwed next year. It's a 2-year, you're screwed.
But again,
you're not getting them anyway.
We're not getting them anyway. Like, let's figure out deals to get draft picks, to get assets that you could flip for draft picks, because that's the only way you get out of this.
But here's some, so let's say you had all the cap space now.
Sure.
Let's say you only did Randall.
Okay.
And you just had a bunch of young guys. There's going to be some dump trades. Like, for instance, San Antonio, at what point did they look at DeRozan and be like, who wants DeRozan? We just want to get rid of him. Here, take him.
That'd be great.
That would have been a good
and
Nick.
Then give us a couple picks for that. Yeah. I mean, that would be great.
OKC needs to, so there's 5 teams that have to deal with the luxury tax. OKC is $1 million over the luxury tax.
They love paying the luxury tax.
Miami is $3.8 million. Golden State's 5.9. They don't really have a way out on that. Houston 7.6 and Portland's 13.7 over luxury tax. So Portland's a situation where if you had the cap space, they would have been like, hey, can you just take Kent Bazemore? Here's our number one pick.
Yeah.
Here, take both because we don't want to pay the luxury tax. And that's the problem when you don't keep that flexibility and everyone's like, no, you got to spend the floor. It's like, you don't have to spend the floor until the end of the season. You can be under the floor all season.
Again, all this makes sense. And I think that the main problem is, again, just stop thinking about yourself as a free agency destination. Does it stop doing it? Does it make sense to have that ability to sign a major free agent when they come on the market? Yes, I guess that's responsible and you should do that. At the same time, look at the track record now and look at the teams that major free agents go to and why they go. You need to show that you have something there that can be built on, either by giving a player some kind of stake or agency within the organization that they can have a voice, they feel like they can have a voice in there, or show that like we're a team that's run in a competent, organized way. We know how to draft.
Nobody thinks that.
Players. Nobody thinks that about the Knicks. They don't they're worried that the owner might go on the radio and say something wild or have one of the like legendary players of the team thrown out of the Garden, and like whatever the circumstances around that are, it's a terrible look. Like James Dolan just needs to disappear for a couple of years and not say anything Knicks related in the press for a while.
Like disappear, like move to another country?
Just like go on the road, play music, but don't talk about the Knicks right now.
He tried to do that when they hired Phil Jackson, and that also backfired. I think part of the problem is he just hasn't hired the right person to run the Knicks yet.
Yeah, I mean,
this is 20 years of the wrong people. And remember when you thought Scott Layden was as bad as it was going to get as an executive?
Right. Then,
and then it was Isaiah.
And then Isaiah was like, hold my brewery full of beers.
And then Phil Jackson's like, I'm putting in 20 hours a week. Watch this.
Well, I think you've hit on a good...
he can't hire people.
You've noticed something which I think is important, which is like the tendency, certainly under Dolan, to look for saviors constantly. The guy who's going to save it now. Man, if we get Masai, offer him $20 million a year, he can turn this around. And by the way, I'd be in for that. I think Masai's great, but we also recognize that this is the kind of thinking that has got you here. Oh, this is going to be the person that turns around. No, okay. Isaiah, he's going to be the person that turns around. He can't turn it, and he can't. Maybe if he coaches and GMs at the same time, he can turn it around. And it's like constantly.
I forgot that happened.
Yeah, that happened.
I forgot he coached.
Yeah, because Larry Brown drove them into a hole in the ground, and it was like, well, Isaiah, why don't you coach also? Well,
I have bad news for you. There's another savior coming. It's good news for people who maybe want to see their broadcast teams get mixed up. No, I think they're Mark Jackson waiting to happen. I think it's going to happen.
I think that is, and
I got to say, it's not completely illogical because think about two things.
You're hurting me. Okay. No. Yes. God. Yeah.
By the way, I think it would be a bad move to do this, but I'm just saying, like, I'm in James Dolan's office right now, listening to the case for it. Sure. And the case isn't awful. So it's like, hey, he was in there from the beginning with Clay and Curry. And he saw the Draymond thing.
Sure.
He was on the record earlier saying this could be the best shooting backcourt of all time.
Why weren't they
He's a diehard
under
Knick.
Him?
He gets New York. He's going to know how to deal with the media. ESPN loves him. They'll be much nicer to us because Mark Jackson's here. There's this whole case for bring this guy in and people will like us more.
Who cares about being liked?
No. I'm just saying that's the case.
Here's my rebuttal. I think the basketball reasons to not hire Mark Jackson are many. Many. But I'm not even going to go there. He is a New York basketball legend. Okay? Let's not tarnish another one. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
let's leave him pure.
Don't do this to Mark. Don't put that on him. Don't bring him back to the Garden and then slowly watch the crowd turn on him. And then he becomes the next sacrificial guy. And then he is thrown out again. And now Mark Jackson's career as a coach is irrevocably ruined. Of course, again, the reasons that he has not been hired as a coach in the league are there's many reasons,
including the 2 assistant coaches who
there's
left the team during his last season.
many reasons. But like, just don't. Mark doesn't deserve. He is a New York legend. Don't tarnish him by making him coach the Knicks.
I have a request for you.
Sure.
Maybe you need to be a little less selfish.
But how,
Maybe you need to think about all basketball fans. If Jackson leaves ESPN, we get more Doris Burke. Maybe the Knicks should just take one for the team here. Because you're screwed anyway. You might as well make our TV broadcasting
that
experience
is an
better.
opinion that
we get
I've
more
heard.
Doris.
I mean, that is an opinion that I've
Maybe
heard.
more Richard Jefferson.
I would just humbly say, please no, please don't let that happen. I mean, like, please don't make that happen.
Can you just tell me quickly on the bright side?
Sure.
Somebody says on the bright side with the
bright
Knicks,
side.
Jason, ... What's the bright side?
RJ has shown flashes that he can be good.
I like RJ.
I think Mitch, listen, he can't stop fouling, and that's a problem. But he is a difference maker, like defensively, and when he's in the game, he cleans up so many mistakes just by his like defensive activity and his length. And
do you think they'll increase the limit to 12 fouls a game? Or no?
That'd be great. Then he could play for a half of basketball. And I think, and Ntilikina, like has shown flashes of late of certainly defensively, he's a difference maker. His offense is not good, but it's shown flashes of coming along. And I just, he's an impact player on the defense. Like he's a player that like it's like Trevor Ariza. Like I could see him going to like a good team and being like, oh man, he's like an important piece on a good team.
I told you last spring, if I was a GM, I already would have traded for him. He's going to be on a good team at some point in his life. That Dallas game, you beat Dallas twice. One of the reasons you beat him was he was in Lucas's jersey the whole game.
He's an absolute dog. And so those are the silver linings.
But
those
the funny
are
thing is, if
glimmers.
you just had RJ, Knox, Smokes, and Mitch, and not signed any of these other people, I think the fans would have liked that team. I mean, they would have enjoyed the 10 minutes Mitch was in the game.
I agree that. I think that there is. Listen, the Knicks fans will always get behind the team, and I think there would have been a significant segment of Knicks fans that have been like, "Yeah, let's roll the young guys out, let's get them minutes, and let's mold them into like a cohesive basketball team, and let's worry about the wins later." That said, I think that I get where the front office, after striking out on 2 free agents that they really thought that they were going to get, were like,
we're coming to New York.
What do we do now? Like we have to plan B it, and we need to figure this out like in the next 20 minutes, or it looks like we didn't know what we're doing.
Maybe the good news is that you didn't get those guys.
I mean, in a way, it kind of is.
Let's hold that thought, because I want to talk about Kyrie in 1 second.
Sure.
We get to take a break. Quick break to talk about Simply Safe, my choice for home security, comprehensive professional home security at a fair price right now. It's the best time of the year to get a Simply Safe security system, and you would get a huge discount on that because you're my listener. Simply Safe protects every room, door, and window with 24/7 professional monitoring, a smart lock and video doorbell defend your front door package from porch pirates inside. An arsenal of sensors and cameras cover every inch of your home. If there's a break-in, they can give real-time video confirmation to police as it happens. So police respond up to 3.5 times faster. Plus, Simply Safe makes it easy. And no contract, hidden fees, or fine print. Prices start at just $15 a month. SimplySafe.com/BS. That's where you go to get a free camera plus Simply Safe's holiday savings. It's a limited time only offer. It's ending soon. Simply Safe with 2 eyes. SimplySafe.com/BS. So Kyrie gets booed at the Celtic game.
Yes, he did.
There's some Kyrie sucks chants.
We knew that was going to happen, right? Everybody knew that was going to happen. That's a normal thing that happens in sports. You leave a team under acrimonious circumstances, be it trade or whatever, you're going to get booed.
Especially when you tell the fan base that you're coming back and you don't. Especially when you position yourself as the leader of the team and give crazy, bizarre press conferences all year that bum everybody out and change the tenor of the team.
Yeah.
And then you say, just wait for the playoffs on playoffs, Kyrie. And then in the Bucks series, all you do is shoot bricks and stumble around for 5 games. You can't wait to leave.
Just as an aside, that was so, thinking about it now.
It's crazy.
Some of that was so weird. Like the way he was there were defensive possessions where he's like, I have Giannis. Why? What do you do? Like, he would wave guys off and be calling like these defensive like realignments and stuff. It's like, what's happening out here right now?
It was like shit that happened in the movie Above the Rim.
It was wild.
It would have been like, what was Avon's name?
Mota.
Mota. Like if he had to shut down Shep. He's like, I got this. He's waving people off. That was Kyrie. Yeah. Tommy Shepard. Now the Wizards champ. All right. So Kyrie does this Instagram post. Sure. And he's acting so erratically and bizarre just for the last year or so that now people are like afraid to even be like, all right, that was really lame. Why'd you do that?
Are you going to read the whole thing? Because I feel like I didn't know I was going to be here this long if you're going to read the entire Instagram post.
It's 309 words. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll just read the end.
Sure.
Because he seems very angry about the fans and the infrastructure of the sport that he loves.
It's a meta commentary on the relationship between fans and sport.
So one thing he writes is, it's all about doing it for the fans, an organization that love you so much, ? Think again. It's a game. And it's promoted as a fandom experience for ticket buyers and viewers at home while defacing who people truly are as people. And then at the end he said, this game isn't meant to be controlled or shown as a drama. It's meant to show the love, all caps. Love for the art is the only damn thing that keeps the purest people in this giant sports entertainment circus. Don't fall for the game that's played in front of you as entertainment. It'll never be as serious dealing with life.
I mean, go ahead. What do you have to say?
No, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
I don't necessarily know what Kyrie's point is. Although I do kind of think that he diagnoses the kind of like reality of big time sports in a kind of accurate way, in that, you know, the players are out here doing a job and they are commodified for profit, certainly. I guess the bottom line is like, yeah, of course, that's how the NBA makes money. That's why you make millions of dollars. That's kind of what the business is. And I think do you have a specific problem with it? What is it? Also, like, I'm not sure. I think he uses punctuation like just however he wants. Like sometimes the question
I actually kind of like that part of it. It's like watching a great poet. Here's my issue. You said the key point. This is how everybody makes money.
Yeah.
The league and the players make money because of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
The fans buy tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And they watch the TV that pays for basically everything. They buy the jerseys, they pay for everything. They buy hats. In China, they're paying for LeBron's trip there. He's been every year for the last 15 years. The fans are the reason these guys make money. So Kyrie's basic point is like, I just want to play basketball. I have this love for this game.
Right, like in a Buddhist monastery. Yeah. I wanted the pure experience.
And unfortunately for me, the fans and the media keep getting in the way of my true pursuit, which is just basketball. I love this game. KD has said forms of this as well.
Right. He made Uncle Drew just for the love, the pure love of
So that's where it falls apart right there. He made Uncle Drew. He made Uncle Drew commercials. He's got Kyrie sneakers.
It's only for the love of it.
All he's done is commodify the game as egregiously as anyone. So what is he complaining about? All he's done is grab checks left and right off of the fact that fans love basketball. And now he's like, fuck you guys. I wish I could just play basketball. If you want to play basketball, just to play basketball, go play pickup. Don't get paid anymore. Just go to the Rucker League and just play there for free because you love basketball. You would never do that because you want paychecks. So stop with the fucking double standard.
I 100% agree with you. I will never know the pure aesthetic delight of being an elite basketball player. I don't know what that does to like a person's psychological makeup when they're just so good at something that it's like unreal. That said, it's like fans are going to boo you. They're going to cheer you. They cheer you when you're doing great. And when they don't like you, they boo you. That's just kind of what it is. You know, like if they boo you. Let's leave aside like the more antagonistic stuff that can happen sometimes. That's like over the line. Fans will boo players that they don't like. That's a reality of sports.
They'll also cheer you.
They will also cheer you.
They will also love you and buy your shoes.
They will do all of that
They will buy your
stuff.
Kyrie 7s, and they will go see Uncle Drew because they like you. So you can't then go on attack because a situation didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out in Boston, where the fans do not like you. Sorry. It's a reality of the situation.
It is a reality of the situation.
And if you don't like it, here's an idea. Retire from the NBA.
He won't.
And just play pickup
Kyrie,
because you love basketball.
Yes. I would just hope he continues. Kyrie, please continue to post. Continue to tweet. Continue to post to Instagram on your stories and on your main feed. Continue to let us in and let us know what is on your mind. I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. I would like to know more. And I hope you continue to do that. When you're playing and when you're not playing, let us know what you're feeling. I want to know.
If fans can't cheer and boo, and now you're going to say, like, what crossed the line with the Kyrie stuff? I guess two people put the coward stuff outside on polls.
Sure.
All right. I wish that hadn't happened. I also think, like, it's not like the worst thing that's ever happened.
It's not the worst thing.
It was like, oh, that sucks. I wish somebody hadn't done that. But in the actual arena, they're just chanting Kyrie sucks. They were mad that he wasn't there.
Yes.
They wanted him to play. They wanted to root against him.
It's and to watch the kind of, the narrative that's emerging now around Brooklyn, where it's like, whispers, oh, they're concerned about his moodiness and his emotions and the way he's acting when he's down on the court, et cetera. And yes, he seems beloved by players, when teams are hugging after games and
because they respect him because he's really talented.
But it's interesting to watch. I do wonder, he can't go to another team after. Like, he needs to figure this out.
He's going to be on like 3 more teams.
I know,
what are you talking about?
But he needs to figure this out right now.
He's not figuring it out.
He needs to. He
it's not
kind of
happening.
does need to figure it out. I just feel like, man, if you go to your 4th team, that's wild.
He's a wonderfully talented player.
He's incredible. When he's playing, it's unbelievable to watch him.
He's just incredible.
Yeah.
He should not try to be a leader, which I think he's slowly figured out. And what he really shouldn't do is attack the whole infrastructure that he's made incredible amounts of money on. And if he doesn't like it, he has options because he can play basketball in his own time. He doesn't have to be in the NBA. If you're in the NBA, there's deals you have to make. One of them is you are now a public figure. You're going to be dissected. It's the same thing like when LeBron goes to China every year, which he's gone every year for the last 15, he's got to reconcile whoever he feels about the Chinese government and some of the shit they do. And he looks at it and he goes, that's fine. I'm going to take the check anyway, which is what the NBA does, which is what a lot of people do. It's what we do when we buy products from places that are made of these different things. Kyrie has to reconcile the fact that if he's going to behave erratically, which he has been for the last 4 years, he's going to get booed. He's going to get dissected. And that's just the way it is. If he doesn't like it, retire.
My thing is this. I think that, again, I do think that he kind of diagnoses the reality of the NBA ecosystem kind of accurately. I just would like him to be a little bit more like, what is the actual criticism? How do we change it then? That would be interesting to me. I don't think that it's changeable. I think that like he's essentially complaining about a thing that is the state of affairs and kind of like the base level.
Wait, you understood what he was complaining about?
Not really. I think he was basically pissed that people were booing him, essentially, and that like.
Well, no, it seemed like he was basically saying, "Get a life."
Yeah, sure.
It was a roundabout way of like when you're in a fantasy league with somebody and they forgot to set their lineup and somebody else in the fantasy league is like, what the fuck, dude? You didn't set your lineup. He's like, sorry, I had to work this week.
It was kind of like
it was condescending.
It was a little matrixy. Like, don't you realize that you're trapped in this mindset where like players are playing for you, but like they're being dehumanized by the system and the fans are all caught up in it and blah, blah, blah. Just like, what is the actual? Can you bullet point it? I just wish it like maybe break it up into paragraphs better, so I can understand. I want to understand. That's all. Like, so maybe bullet point your points and don't just do a whole block paragraph of text because it's hard for me to discern where we're going. That's all.
Well, he said. It's promoted as a fandom experience for ticket buyers and viewers at home.
Of course it is.
While defacing who people truly are as people. Defacing's a strong word.
So I interpret that as being Kyrie is saying they're commodifying him in a certain way that does not comport with who he is as a person. If that is the case, then I mean, again, just as an editor, what are some specifics here, Kyrie? Can we get some under that? What are some examples? Because you're laying out a fascinating case and an idea here. But what else? I want to know more. I just want him to continue.
Do you think
writing.
He was upset about the reviews of Uncle Drew? Is that when all this started?
I think that
he thought he was an Oscar winner.
I think his team did everything they could do to shield him from every written review of Uncle Drew, to the point where I bet you they photoshopped fake reviews and sent them to him, and created an entire fake Rotten Tomatoes website that he could log into and be like, oh man, Uncle Drew, it's the movie of the century. No one's ever seen anything like this. Roger Ebert died several years ago. Roger Ebert says Uncle Drew changed my life.
So we're not going to see Uncle Drew 2 is how it's starting to shape up.
We might see it.
No, I don't know. He feels like he's been defaced.
We might see it.
I guess, and we should wrap up, but I guess I was watching, my dad and I were watching on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
There was this ridiculous 12 o'clock, what was it? Nets Celtics game?
Mm-hmm.
It started at 12 o'clock. So the pregame show was on, and it was 8 o'clock. We're having coffee, West Coast time. Tommy Heinsohn is on.
3 whiskeys in.
He's talking about the Kyrie thing, and you could just see he's reining himself in.
Yeah.
And he wants to do the whole speech of, when I was playing, they were throwing quarters at us as I'm shooting free throws. He wants to say it, but he's not. But he and the host were both basically like, Kyrie treated people terribly here. They're saying it in roundabout ways, but they don't want to say it. Then it goes to Scalabrine, and Scalabrine's like, you're making excuses for what happened in Boston. The reason people reacted that way was because of what happened on the court and what happened off the court and how you treated people here. And Kyrie needs to reconcile that part. I would advise against the Instagram post. He needs to think about how he treats other people. Start there and then worry about how he's being treated. That would be my advice.
I hope he posts about it, though.
NBA Desktop coming Friday.
Yeah. Yep.
Binge mode Star Wars going full steam. Jessica Concepcion, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're getting to Tim Robbins in 1 second. First, if you're like most millennials, you should be investing. You're not sure where to start. Getting your money right doesn't have to be hard. SoFi Invest makes it easy. It's the first investing platform to offer stocks, automated investing, and crypto all in one. And with SoFi's Stock Bits, you can buy a piece of your favorite brand stock with as little as $1. Listeners who fund their account at SoFi.com/BS will receive $25 in mystery stock. Yeah, free stock just for signing up. Here's how it works. Go to SoFi.com/BS, create an account, choose either do it yourself or let SoFi's automated investing build your portfolio, and use Stock Bits to buy fractional shares of your favorite stocks. Get started with as little as $1. Again, listeners who fund their account at SoFi.com/BS will receive $25 in mystery stock just for signing up. SoFi Lending Corp, CFL number 60-54612. Also, since we're here, Square. They make that little white reader that lets anyone take credit cards, but running and growing business takes so much more than payments. That's why Square built so many tools that can help. Point of sale software, invoices you can send from your phone, easy to build websites, access to business loans. Their payments are the best in business. No complicated contracts or weird fees. You can always get your money fast, even instantly. And the best part, all these tools are in one place. They're all built to work together. Whether you sell stuff on Instagram, whether you own a restaurant or a retail boutique, whether you're Fernando the barber, the guy who cuts Kyle's hair. Kyle, you need a haircut, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Get over there and
Puerto Rico. Got to get it done.
Get over there. Pay Fernando with Square. See all the ways Square can take your business from square one to whatever's next at square.com/go/BS. Loans subject to credit approval and issued by a Celtic Bank member, FDIC. All right, here he is, Tim Robbins. All right, the tallest actor ever to win an Oscar. Tim
there
Robbins.
You go.
It's pretty good, right?
Well,
are you worried somebody's going to break your record? Kevin Garnett's in Uncut Gems. He might take it.
Or Shaq playing Hamlet.
That could happen. If KG gets nominated for Uncut Gems, you might be in trouble.
You think so?
6'5", like who are the 5 tallest actors? You and Clint Eastwood. Who are the other 3?
Jimmy Stewart was pretty tall.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a lot of tall actors. A lot
Costner's like a solid 6'1".
6'1", yeah. James Cromwell, he's 6'7". He's taller than me.
He's 6'7"?
If he wins an Oscar, he will take the throne away from me.
Do you think, because a lot of actors are short, do you think that's an issue sometimes with movies where they're like, Tim's just too taller than this other guy we were thinking?
Could be. It
or they have to just shoot it?
Depends on the security or lack thereof of the lead actor, But for example, Tom Cruise didn't have a problem with it,
No.
When I was doing War of the Worlds with him. And we even had to get into a death match together. And, well, he had to win. But,
right, he had to win that one.
But no, there's certain people just don't have that insecurity. One of my best friends is not particularly tall and never comes up.
Any hoops for you ever or no?
Around hoop season, I was always playing hockey.
Oh, yeah, you're a hockey guy.
Yeah. So growing up in New York City, I played a lot of roller hockey.
Wow.
And a little bit of ice hockey. The ice time was really hard to come by. You'd have to get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Play at 6.
That's still the case, by the way, in all areas of the United States.
And then there's the midnight leagues, where you're playing a game at 1 a.m. and getting home 3, 4, and you're still hyped up from the game, and it's just not healthy.
My son got into hockey probably right as he turned 6. And there's no hockey out here. There's 2 rinks.
I know.
And neither of them were anywhere near our house. And
I know.
He hit a point where it's like, all right, is he going to start doing this? And when you start looking at it, it's like, well, that's an hour that way. That's 45 minutes that way. It's 5 a.m. It's 6 a.m. It's like, that's not fun. Can you not do this?
It's a big commitment. It's that, the parents across America that are doing it, they know. All those road trips too. It's tough. You got to get up super early. And also just deal with the whole nature of it as well, the culture of it. It's pretty interesting. It can be good. It can be bad. I always found, that it was important to let the kids play and not to do too many drills. We had a place, we still do have a place in the country outside of New York. We built a little oversized tennis court and kind of put a curb around it so we could flood it in the winters, and had shinny games there for 20, 30 kids from the neighborhood, play all day long, get a fire going, hot chocolate. Nothing better in the world. Especially when you're if it's a Friday and you're doing your sheet of ice, you kind of handheld Zamboni that I had.
Yeah.
This is basically a hose running into a tee and at the bottom of the tee is a bunch of holes that lets out a little bit of water, right? And it's being down there at midnight after having shoveled it. You got a little scotch, fire going.
Yeah.
And you're doing your slow move Zamboni so that in the morning you have this black ice. It's just the best.
It was a homemade Zamboni, or you got this?
No, it's actually, you can order them and I found it in a catalog.
Mini Zamboni.
It's
interesting.
Imagine a T.
Yeah.
The T is the bottom, and there's a whole bunch of holes in the bottom, and then the hose goes into the top. So it's like a very primitive Zamboni. But it works.
Wow.
It creates this incredible black ice.
Why don't you get credit for the climactic scene in Top Gun more often? We just did a rewatchables about it a few months ago, and you're right there. You're the first guy, high fives, you take over for Goose, nothing.
Yeah.
It's been lost in the Tim Robbins history.
That's all right.
Merlin? How many lines did you have?
I don't know, 8, but it was the best job because here, check this out. I worked down in San Diego for maybe a week to start somewhere in June or something like that. And I got paid for the entire summer. Every week I wasn't there. I got paid. So I went back to LA, produced a play, acted in it. By the time they had finished down in San Diego, they were starting to do the air sequences in these machines. I don't know what they're called. And I worked for a week there and basically got paid for, this was early in my career, got paid for 18 weeks.
Wow.
For nothing, for doing nothing. I said, wow, that's a good way to make a living.
Did you audition? You were available for any part, or were you going for another part and didn't get it, or what happened?
I have no idea. It was just,
You're just in.
Yeah, I was just in.
How did Bull Durham happen?
Well, I think Bull Durham was after that.
Yeah, it was 2 years after.
Bull Durham happened. I was auditioning at the time. I auditioned for that part. I did well, and then I had to go prove myself with Ron Shelton. I had to go throw the ball, and Kevin Costner was there, and I had to pitch to him because he didn't want to have people that didn't know how to play baseball.
Yeah,
and I was also offered 8 Men Out. You remember that movie?
Yeah, that was a good. Both
John
of those
Sayles,
movies.
yeah.
Well, you made the right choice.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Who would you have been in 8 Men Out? Like one of the
I forget.
one of the White Sox?
I forget. Yeah, one of the Black Sox.
Oh, Black Sox. Yeah.
Which was a great movie and a great script, and had a couple friends that were going to do it, and it was John Sayles had just done Matawan, which I loved, but then this was something about this script that Ron Shelton had written, and then meeting him, and then playing a little ball with Kevin, and then meeting Susan, and I think I did make the right decision.
What
Changed
happened?
my life.
What happened with your arm during that filming thing? Because you're throwing a lot of pitches.
My arm was fine. I have pictures of me icing it. They had a trainer, and every time you finished, they iced it and did all the therapy things they do. I didn't realize I had played third base, so that was the extent of my arm. But you have to have a pretty good arm. So I didn't know the mechanics. I had to learn the mechanics and how to push off and how power pitching comes from the legs and all that stuff. But it was a dream come true. Imagine, you're a kid that always wanted to be a baseball player, and now you're an adult. You're given a uniform, and they tell you to go out on the field and have fun. It's like, that's pretty cool. Because I used to act out games. We didn't have a television, so I'd listen to New York Mets games on the radio, and I'd put on my uniform that I'd gotten for Christmas, and I pretend to be the pitcher, and I act out the entire game, and So it was, one of those dreams come true.
Costner was here a couple months ago. We were talking about that movie, and he was saying, like, one of the things he remembered is just like all of a sudden you and Susan Sarandon are falling in love as you're filming the movie, and just like the intensity and just everything about it. Everybody knew they were making a good movie. Your life's changing, her life's changing, and just everything. He said it was like really a memorable experience.
It was. It was a beautiful time. It was a beautiful time. And I can still smell that air, the tobacco in the air.
Were you filming that, like North Carolina?
Durham, North Carolina. Yeah.
Did you know that it had a chance to go down as like kind of the baseball movie? Because some people think there's like some people in the natural camp. There's people in the Bull Durham camp. There's people in the Major League camp. But Bull Durham, I think, is the consensus. Probably has the most votes. Best baseball movie.
I really enjoy hearing that, and I believe so too. Yeah, look, come on, the writing in that film is so amazing. When I first read that script, the Church of Baseball, all the Annie's rants about Walt Whitman and the connection between what it is to be free and baseball, all these great metaphorical things that only a baseball player and a person that's interested in writing would conceive. Ron Shelton, was a minor league player.
Right.
So he really knew the world and loved the world, with respect for the world. And so we knew we were in good hands for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
First of all, the insight he had in the script. No one knew whether he could direct or not. This is his first directing gig. But I was sold the second day of dailies. We're watching actual dailies in a hotel, which is what they used to do. And I hear this commotion behind me, and I see Ron Shelton holding one of the producers up by the lapels up on a wall off the floor, saying, "If you ever talk to my actor again, I will fucking kill you."
Oh my God!
Yeah. I was like, Kevin looks at me and he goes, "Cujo." So that became our nickname for Ron.
Oh, wow.
He basically was saying in his second day of work as a professional director, "I'm going to make my movie or you're going to fire me." Which I still remember as, that's gutsy.
Yeah.
It's the work of someone that is not going to be messed around with. And he's setting down the ground rules right from the start. Something I learned from Ron, that, you have to, if you're going to be the leader of something, you got to let you drive. doesn't help to have 8 drivers in a car. It just doesn't.
Also, 3 really richly drawn out characters that I wonder, now we're 31 years later, I think, 30 years, 31. If that's just like a Netflix show now, or like a 7-episode HBO show, or if they even think that Bull Durham is a movie. Would they try?
We wouldn't be able to get Bull Durham done.
It would have to be a TV series, right?
It probably wouldn't be. You know,
like Apple TV would be like, hey, we're doing this minor league baseball show.
Doubtful.
And it just would be different.
Doubtful they would even do it.
Right.
Yeah. It's yeah. But that's the good news is we got it done. And,
different era.
We all got paid. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really happy. So proud to be part of that film. That was, this is the thing. In the long run, what you want is something that can still be seen, right?
Yeah.
And Bull Durham can still be seen and appreciated. There's movies that fade away fast. And oftentimes those are the movies that are advertised a lot and become these hits while they're out, make $100 million. But they just don't stand the test of time. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I'd much rather have Bull Durham's in there than, something that was I don't know what beat Bull Durham at the box office at the time, but I'm pretty sure it's not still around.
Well, what's crazy is there's a timelessness to it. There's no cell phones, obviously. There's no internet. I'm not sure it matters.
No.
Because when you watch it, it's still, I don't feel like we're in 1988 necessarily. Like some of the hairdos maybe, but for the most part, it's mostly a movie that could be made now. It would have all the same beats.
Yeah.
Minor league baseball certainly hasn't changed. It's still in the same rinky-dink towns and weird parts of America. So that part's not any different. The whole concept of Crash Davis, like that still exists over and over again. There's a Crash Davis. You always read about the real life Crash Davis, all that stuff. And then, what happens with Nuke with the meteoric rise and he's just kind of passing through town before he gets to the majors. So all themes that still exist.
Right. Before he blows his arm out.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. When do you think he blew his arm out?
I don't know. I'm thinking about 4 or 5 seasons in.
Tommy John surgery. They converted him to a closer. Doesn't quite work.
It doesn't work out.
Yeah.
He retires. He's at trade shows doing autographs. And then someone, then he meets Jim Bouton.
Right.
And Jim Bouton teaches him how to throw a knuckleball and he makes this great comeback. That was my idea for the sequel.
Would you have done a sequel?
Hell yeah. I think I'm a little too old now, but when I was 40 or 45, I thought that would have been a good sequel.
You had more than enough juice to do the sequel.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But,
like semi-washed up Nuke making one last run at it.
60 years old, throwing the knuckleball. No, I actually got to know Jim Bouton, who passed recently. Lovely man. What a great guy. He showed me how to throw a knuckleball.
For the audience, the young ones out there, Jim Bouton writes the first great baseball, like behind the scenes baseball book, Ball 4.
Incredible book.
And nobody had ever kind of peeked behind the curtain in a book like that.
Right.
Who played for a team.
Completely de-romanticized the whole idea of the glory of Mickey Mantle, for example.
I haven't read that book in a while. I imagine it reads super tame now.
I imagine too. I don't know. I did read his recent book that he wrote about this minor league. He started a league of baseball, a baseball league of like original baseball team. Using the original ball, the no gloves. I like those leagues. Like the baseball from like 1890s, kind of thing. And he wrote a book about actually environmental pollution in New England. I'm curious to return to Ball 4. I remember reading it as a teenager and just being just giddily in love with it,
I remember the same thing with the Bronx Zoo when Sparky Lau wrote that one. And he had the Reggie Jackson, Thurman Munson stories. And it was oh my God, these guys didn't like each other. They just had no idea. They had to be separated in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
People sitting on birthday cakes and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's good that you have that perspective that this Ball 4 was the first.
Yeah.
Right? It was the one that was like, there's so many people got so offended by that book when it came out. It was how you like broke the veil of the silence. You can't talk about that kind of stuff,
It was a different way they were unveiled too, because they were like, I remember Bronx Zoo had an excerpt maybe in like Sport Magazine, and it was just like a piece of it. And it was like about different Reggie Jackson's a dick. Also, it was like, oh my God, when's this book come out? And I think it would be really hard to build anticipation for a book like that. Like they would just release it sooner, or it would just come out right away, or whatever.
Yeah.
Back then, it was like, what's this going to be? Is this going to be like a nuclear bomb, or the Yankees going to be the same? Nobody knew it was in the book.
Yeah.
Now it's different.
Yeah, it's some it's just like life, there are great people and there are assholes, It's like same on any sport team.
Yeah. I'm sure movies, same thing.
Same thing.
Did you ever think about writing a book?
I actually am. I've started to. I'm writing a memoir.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah, I'm.
You've been known to have some thoughts about some things.
Yeah, and it will all come out in the book. There's a lot of things that I, still formulating how to say, but, things that been brewing for years about the way I feel about certain things.
Well, you have some unique relationships with certain experiences, right? Like you become famous overnight.
Not really.
Bull Durham, though.
Yeah, but I had been going for 10 years at that time.
Yeah, but that movie was like a phenomenon.
Yeah,
though.
for sure. It was great. I mean, I'm not saying that, but yeah. I don't know about overnight success.
I guess you were saying elsewhere when you did the arc on that. I remember that was a big deal. But I didn't know who you were. I just knew you from, what were you, like a terrorist or something?
Yeah. There was the first 3 St. Elspurs. Yeah. And I was the reason I got that part was because, it was the first audition that really clicked for me because I had such a bad attitude. And I guess it kind of translated into them thinking that I'd be a good terrorist.
Oh, like you're too difficult or something?
Just I didn't, it's like, young, brash, punk rocker.
Yeah.
Going to auditions for Golden Girls. I'm like, no. Like,
Golden Girls.
No, it's not me.
Playing the grandson who's got an attitude.
And so it didn't work out for the first year and a half that I was going on auditions. And then something about this clicked, and then I realized, oh my God, this is pretty good money, and I can produce theater out of this. I had a young theater company at the time called the Actors Gang that we had formed at UCLA, and I had produced the first play on delivery of pizzas in Beverly Hills, Jacopo's, and it's good tips, but I realized St. Elsewhere was a better paycheck, so
right.
I got my act together, got a better attitude, started working more, started producing more theater.
Well, you talk about how some movies just don't die and just keep going and going. And then other movies are a huge success, and then they don't have that same kind of, they don't keep going for 30 years. I feel like The Player was like that because The Player was such a huge thing when it came out. And I felt like that was one of the defining movies of that year in a lot of different ways. And especially because Altman was a little bit older at that point.
It was his comeback.
And it was like a very, very LA movie about people in LA, which people out here love. But I didn't know that. I was living in Boston.
Yeah.
But it brought me into this whole world that I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's weird that movie hasn't, it's like that movie I never see on TV. And I don't totally understand it.
Sometimes it's who owns it and how, what deals they made and who, this is a new thing that we're going to have to deal with. Like, who decides what is in rotation?
Yeah.
And it's something I think we have to talk about, like I'm frustrated that Bob Roberts isn't out there more. I think that movie is so relevant to now. But you can find it, you can find anything if you do a deep dive, but it's what is presented on their menus that, here's what we want you to watch. Right.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but when people rediscover it, The Player's got legs. It's a really good film.
I would say a top 10 LA movie. It's definitely a top 5 behind the scenes Hollywood movie. And I mean, Altman.
Genius.
What do you remember all these years later about him?
Oh, I just loved him so much. God, I miss him.
Everybody who works with him seems like they're just like revered him.
I tell you something. First time I met him, I was so nervous because, I saw Nashville when I was in high school, and that was the first movie I saw that made me think, oh my God, movies. I was a theater guy.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, there's stories to be told. And the way that he told stories was so fresh and innovative. And so when I got to meet him, I was, I said to my agent, is it an audition? What are the sides? What am I supposed to say? He said, no, he just wants to meet you. And so I drive to this place that he was living in Malibu. and it's basically his house and his family and a couple of staff members. It's basically for lunch, and he just wanted to talk. And one of the reasons he wanted me to be in his film was because of the theater work I was doing. He really appreciated the what he'd read about, and he asked me to do this film. And I was, at the time, I think Jacob's Ladder had just come out. I was broke. I had a baby, and I was, anxious. And I got offered $1 million to do this shitty comedy. And I really didn't want to do it, but I had to do it, And I'm just laying in my hotel room, and I talked to my agent. I said, listen, what's the chance of the play happening? I don't know. They don't have the financing for it yet. I said, really? But it would happen when? Like in a couple months. Yeah, and this thing's going right now, and it would conflict, this $1 million offer. And I just said, fuck it, I can't do it. I can't do this. I can't do this shitty comedy. I'm going to wait with the faith that the player will happen, right? What I didn't know is in the course of that long wait over a couple months, Altman was offered the money to do it with another actor.
Oh.
And he stayed faithful.
Really?
Yeah. He said, no, I'm going to do it with this kid. I talked to him, and I told him I want him to do it. So I gave him my word, and so we're going to do it with him. So he waited for me to be acceptable to them.
And you turned down $1 million comedy that probably disappeared after five weeks.
Yeah. But here's what happened. Being allowed into this world, basically Altman told me to come out for pre-production. He said, we're going to rewrite this. We're going to sit down. We're going to hash this out. So I got to sit at the feet of a master.
Yeah.
I got to observe everything about directing from him. And that was really
so you're like going to grad school almost.
Exactly. It was my film school. And it was right before I directed my first film too. I did The Player in the spring, and in the fall I was directing Bob Roberts.
Right.
And one of the greatest things I learned from him was humility. This was a genius. This was what you could call an auteur, an artist. And I'd be in the office with him, and, department heads would come in, the prop guy, the costume person, they'd say, Bob, got a question, this and this and this and this. If they went on at all, he'd say, cut to the verb. And they'd get to what they wanted to talk about without all the niceties. And he would say, I don't know. What do you think? And what I realized is that, yeah, he did know the answer to these various questions about props and costumes, but he wanted them to be contributors, and he wanted them to feel valued as contributors. And then at one point he says to me, why would I cheat myself out of them perhaps maybe having a better idea? Why would I cheat myself out of that? And I came to understand that the directing is really being able to, yes, be the captain, but also allow your crew members to do their jobs, and also to be able to live in the unknown.
Yeah.
That you maybe don't know everything. And that, isn't it great that there's all these creative people around that can provide answers to those questions? And that's what the actors responded to.
Usually
that's why actors loved him so much.
Usually that philosophy works you see it with comedies. Like Adam McKay directs that way when he does his movies. He relies a lot on the ad-libbing and letting rope, but usually you don't see that as much in dramas.
Yeah. Well, PTA has
PTA is another one who does that, yeah.
Because he came through that school as well.
I would say Altman was probably the best possible person to spend a few weeks with.
Oh my God!
Because if you'd spent like 5 weeks with Stanley Kubrick, I don't know how much that would have helped you. You'd be like, what's going on with that guy?
Yeah, it was almost the opposite,
Yeah,
yeah. And I did 3 movies with him, I wish that I could have done more.
So The Player comes out, and you're in LA.
First, we're in Cannes, and it's at the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah,
and it's a huge hit. And I'm at the Cannes Film.
You won, right?
I won Best Actor.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I also am presenting at the Cannes Film Festival my first film, Bob Roberts, which is getting a whole bunch of attention there, and got a distribution out of there. So yeah, this is 2 days after my second son was born. I got on a plane to go to Cannes. And I just said to Susan, you know what? If this baby doesn't come, I'm not going to Cannes. So second I said that, the baby was born. And thank God. But yeah, it was a heady time. It was, I remember, being there with both films, and, I was so happy to be there with Bob because it was his return.
Yeah.
He had been out of,
for a while.
Yeah. He was kind of still doing films, out of New York and filming plays, and, he's still creating, but wasn't, in favor in Hollywood.
Were people in LA like the agent community? Hey, that wasn't about me, right? Or hey, was there a lot of that?
I actually was in a couple of agents' offices.
Yeah.
To study this role. So I sat with a couple. Actually, let me correct myself. Not agents, executives, studio executives. I sat and listened to all their phone calls for like 4 hours, 5 hours straight.
Just to get a feel? Just
to get a feel of all the bullshit. And I was really grateful to those executives who shall remain nameless. But Altman was funny because in Cannes, when it was this huge success, I remember him turning to me and he goes, success, we must have fucked up because, we were probably too nice to them.
This is an accident. Yeah.
We were too nice to them. It was success. I don't trust it.
Why do you think Bob Roberts, if somebody watched it in 2019, I mean, I know the answer, but I want to hear from you. Why do you think people would be so struck by some of the things in it?
Right-wing, successful businessman running for the Senate, also a big fan of beauty pageants, comes out of entertainment. I don't know.
So you're saying there might be a couple parallels?
A couple of parallels.
It's weird that it's not on TV, especially like during an election cycle.
Yeah.
You would think that would be popping on.
Yeah.
I would think same thing for like Bulworth and
from
all the different
your
political
mouth
comedies.
to God's ears.
Get on it, cable distributors.
God being the cable distributors.
Let's take a break. Talk about ZipRecruiter. Finding key players for your team can be challenging. Just think about Shawshank. What would have happened if they didn't find key players like Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman? God only knows what would happen. Think about all the sports teams that if one trade had gone differently, the whole thing would have gone down like a house of cards. Think about the Warriors. If they had traded Klay Thompson for Kevin Love a few years back, did they win 3 titles? Who knows? Cafe Altura's COO Dylan Miskowitz could relate. He needed to hire a director of coffee. He posted his job at ZipRecruiter. He found the best person for the role in just a few days. 4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/BS. I don't know how many times I have to tell you to do this. ZipRecruiter.com/BS. ZipRecruiter is the smartest way to hire. You talked about the rewatchability and how some things go and some things don't, and how people, who knows who's controlling it. Shawshank's the best example of that, right?
Yeah.
Turner buys it from or merges with Castle Rock or whatever happened, and they just get Shawshank forever, basically. And they're just putting it on TBS and TNT for 4 straight years.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the group of people who remember where they saw it, what theater, the whole thing. I remember we did a rewatchables about it a few months ago, and I had my dad on it because he was the one who called me and was like, go see this Shawshank movie. And I'm like, really? The one with the weird title? He's like, just go to the movie. And I went, I took my girlfriend, and we were just sitting in the car after, like in a coma.
Oh, wow.
But the rewatchability of that movie was what made it, because it did okay. You had to re-release it. The Oscars helped, but it didn't really become Shawshank for a couple of years, it feels like.
It took a while until people found it. And, that was a great experience to go through because it taught me, which I'd already been through, by the way, with Jacob's Ladder, which I knew it was a great film.
That's a good movie.
It didn't have the audience when it came out. It just was the wrong time for it.
Yeah.
It taught me not to judge a movie based on its first weekend box office. It's irrelevant in the long run. It might make more money, but it doesn't mean the movie's great. So, yeah, Shawshank is kind of the gift that keeps giving. When Turner did that, he sold it to himself
Yeah.
For the lowest rate.
Probably a little bit illegal, right? I mean,
I'm
it probably
not
hurt your residuals a little bit.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't stress about that. I've had even lawyers, come up to me. Do you want to sue them? I was like, no. Shawshank is what it is.
Yeah.
And it has this indelible, lasting reputation, and I feel that that's really the point of it. The fact that Turner did that actually created the space for people to see the film. Whereas if he hadn't, perhaps maybe we wouldn't be talking about it today. So I love the idea that it has such a wide reach and across all kinds of cultural barriers, political barriers. I was in China. I flew 2 hours out of Beijing into the countryside, then drove another 3 hours to the location where we were going to film, and people there knew Shawshank.
Seriously?
Yeah. I was like, wow, this movie is really,
Well, it's another one that's even more timeless than Bull Durham because it's actually set in the 1950s. So it could just go on 50s and 60s. It could just go on for, ever because it's trapped in this little area. When we did the podcast about it, I did a lot of research about it. It's always tough to tell what's true and not true. But it did seem like it wasn't like the happiest filming.
Which one?
Just Shawshank, like the actual, like it was a little bit acrimonious.
Not acrimonious. It's more that it took a long time.
A lot of takes.
A lot of takes. And there was, I loved Morgan and Clancy Brown and Roger Deakins on that film. And, a lot of the actors would get together.
And you're all stuck on a prison.
Yeah.
In prison,
in Ohio. And we made it work. It's just, I think what was, if there was any struggle on that film, it was because everyone loved the script so much.
Yeah.
That Frank Darabont had written. I mean, it was a genius script. And so when you are part of something like that, you kind of want to protect what that feeling was that you had when you read that script.
Yeah.
And if it's straying from that at all, because you care so much about it, you want to put your foot down. And that's not very often that you do that as a actor, at least for me, in my experience, because, generally you either are going with the flow of it or you don't care. And that's the worst part.
I think it has one of the great decisions to delete a scene ever. Because I remember Showtime a couple years later when he's chiseling through the wall, which you don't see until after he escapes.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, he's chiseling through the wall and the thing comes out and he kind of whatever. And that was in there in the structure of the film. So from that point on, he's thinking about getting through the wall and he takes that out but he makes it a flashback instead.
Yeah.
So when he actually escapes, I remember being in the theater thinking like he killed himself or, you don't think the escape part. You're just thinking the worst. You're thinking the way Red's thinking.
Right.
And it's this red herring that, oh no, he actually escaped.
Yeah.
And if that's not in there, it's a totally different movie. And it's a totally different experience. Now we've seen it a million times. He's going to escape. But that first time I was like, oh my God, he got out.
Yeah, well, that was the play. Was that what he's saying goodbye to his friends? So the emotion that he has when he's saying the final things to Red are, steeped in that sadness.
Yeah,
but it's also a sadness that we kind of wanted the audience to maybe believe that the sadness was going to lead to a suicide.
And he cuts out some stuff with after Morgan Freeman gets out about him adjusting to the new life that actually like it just because at that point you just want to get to the hug in Mexico. And then that was the other thing I learned that the hug wasn't initially in there and they didn't want to have that. And there was like a whole bunch of couple different endings filmed and they settled on him actually being on the beach, Andy and Red and that whole thing. But I mean, you need some luck when you make a movie, but it seems like every decision worked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens to those guys after, in your opinion? They're on the boat. Red gets checked into Andy's hotel. What do the next 10 years look like?
They run a business, have fun, live free. or die.
Think Red's like the manager of the hotel?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Of course, the absurd version of that is like, someone was like, "What's the sequel?" I'm like, Andy and Red, Girls Gone Wild, Zihuatanejo. Wouldn't that just kill everything you hold sacred about Shawshank Redemption?
I always thought, I can't believe you guys haven't done a Super Bowl commercial where you're on the beach now. You wouldn't do it?
I wouldn't do it. I've been offered stuff like that.
You've never did
to go
Not
off
going
of
back.
Shawshank. Would never ever do anything to denigrate or, exploit that movie. I think it means too much to people.
So then you go and do Dead Man Walking next year.
Yeah, which was a trip.
Intense.
Yeah, another prison story, and this was while I was doing Shawshank Redemption, I was writing Cradle Will Rock, and I wanted that to be my follow-up film to Bob Roberts. And then Susan found this incredible book by Sister Helen Prejean and wanted us to do that. And I read the book, and I put the other one on hold and wrote the screenplay for Dead Man Walking pretty quickly. And I think I had the first draft in September, and we were filming by January, February. It was very quick. Happened very quick.
What do you remember about the whole Oscar stretch for Shawshank and Dead Man Walking and that whole process? Was that in motion back then where you, like it is now? Like now when you're trying to get a movie nominated or whatever, you got to do the podcast circuit and
I think you got to do
late night shows.
You got to do lap dances now.
Yeah. you kind of do though. Get it out there. I'm not even sure if it works, but that seems to be the process.
I don't think it does, and I think it's gross, and I think it denigrates everything. It denigrates the creative people. It denigrates the business. It's like a 2-month, 3-month lap dance, really. And
I like it because I get to talk to people like you on the podcast. But if this is a different kind of podcast than the 5-minute, like 5 questions, and then you move on to the next
listen, I'm happy to do that. I'm always happy to talk to people because, part of what we do, we want people to know about, I want people to know about this movie I've done called Dark Waters. I want people to go see it. That's all been part of the business forever. And what I'm talking about is the extracurricular kind of things. The parties, the people, the meet and greets, you got to be at this place you don't want to be and shake hands because it could lead to a nomination kind of thing. And that's, I don't know. I just find that I was really blessed to never really have to do that. For Mystic River, I was working on a play called Embedded at the time in New York, and I didn't have to I couldn't go to all those parties and events that people throw. And I won anyway. So, you
didn't do any lobbying at all?
No, I didn't.
What made you click with Sean?
What
Sean
made
Penn.
me click with Sean?
Yeah. I had him on the pod, I think like maybe 2 months ago. I liked him. I mean, he's intense, but there's like a sense of humor underneath. I don't know. I like talking to him.
Oh yeah. He's an incredibly talented actor. He's a great person. I knew him early on. He around the time I did a film called Five Corners, I talked to him for the first time. He asked me to do a movie for him. I couldn't at the time. And then when I was writing Dead Man Walking, when I finished my first draft, I thought about who would be the ideal to play him, this part, and I thought of Sean, but I had just read, he had just done an interview saying that he was quitting acting. And then,
one of many times.
And so I kind of, when I read that, my feeling wasn't that he was quitting acting. I think what I got out of it, he was quitting reading bad scripts, which I can definitely understand,
right?
Because that can be very frustrating. Anyway, I sent him the script, went and met with him, and he agreed to do it. And he was great. And both he and Susan are amazing in that film. And the chemistry between them and the depths that of emotion that they play. And I feel like they really found the love story in that movie. And the unlikely path to redemption for this kind of contemptible human being.
Kyle, can you imagine me directing my wife in a movie?
Kyle's
her nephew.
Definitely not.
It would be tough, right? She would get mad at least 5
service or
Yeah,
anything.
it's an interesting wrinkle to the marriage, like directing your wife in a movie for 2 months.
Yeah. It worked out pretty well though.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. She won an Oscar for it, and Sean was nominated, and I was nominated for director.
What do you think of all the movies you made, what's the one that you're kind of annoyed wasn't appreciated the way you thought it should have been?
Altman, I asked him this question. He says, the one I love the most is the one that people, it's like my kids. The one I love the most are the ones that aren't paid attention to.
Right.
And so.
What was his answer then?
I think he loved Brewster McCloud.
Really?
I can't say hilarious. That 100% which was the answer, but because I think he had appreciation for other things that were ignored, and he went through quite a few of those.
Yeah.
For me, it's Cradle Will Rock, a film I made in 1999. It's an epic film set in the 30s about art and the what artists do to survive, and what it is to state an opinion in a free society, and what the ramifications are for that sometimes. It's a sprawling film, a huge film, and Disney dumped it when it came out. They hated it. It was made through the good graces of a guy named Joe Roth.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, and,
big studio head.
Yeah, he was the head of Disney. He had seen Dead Man Walking. He had told me how much he loved it. He said this. He also said it's very rare for a second film to be that good, and I know you're a good filmmaker. And so I want to know what your new idea is. And I gave him the script, and it was like one of those, old time stories. You walk in an office, the guy says, "How much you need?" And yeah, all right, kid, go ahead. The keys are yours. Yeah, go make your movie. And so it was kind of miraculous that the movie got made in the first place. But then Joe left his job before it came out.
Oh, and then the new person comes
so
in.
The new
they
person
don't
came
care.
in, and whatever happened.
Man.
But I, what happened was it had a contractual obligation to be released in 100 theaters. So what they did was they dumped it. They put it in 100 theaters for a day. That's all they needed to do, and didn't even invite critics. And I did the research. I went around, no advertisements for various
that's
markets.
so frustrating. I never saw it.
That's why you didn't see it. And then I found out, it wasn't released internationally in English markets. This had a cast with, John Cusack, Joan Cusack, Bill Murray, Susan Sarandon.
Oh my God.
Ruben Blades, Cary Elwes, Emily Watson,
Jesus,
just John Turturro, a great cast, and wasn't released in Australia. Figure that out on DVD or video cassette. So, that's the film I would really encourage people to find. And even if you have to find it illegally I just go ahead and do it. Don't pay for it. Just steal it somewhere.
That's crazy.
Steal this movie.
You and your wife at the time, you started to take shit for being political. And now you think like 2019, seems like that has certainly changed with celebrities.
Has it?
I think it has. I think a lot more people are outspoken than it was when you guys were doing it.
It's easy to say something negative about what's happening right now.
Yeah.
For sure. And I'm glad people are talking about it. I wish that
the stakes are lower.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, where it matters is when people are going to start dying. That's very clear in my mind. When the powers that be are starting to cook up a war somewhere, or they're intervening in other people's conflicts and trying to create a war somewhere because of our business interests, that's when it's important to have freedom of speech. That's when it's important to use it. And the last big time that happened in the early 2000s when we went into Iraq.
You were very outspoken.
I was, but you know how many people weren't. I mean, it was just basically me, Susan, Sean Penn, and Michael Moore. That was about it. Not a lot of people came out. And I knew a lot of these people were against that war. and would come up to me privately and say, "Oh, thank you for speaking out against it." I'm like, "Why are you whispering? You have a voice. You have a right to speak out about this stuff. The more people that speak out about it, the less chance this is going to happen." Then we see in the 2 weeks before the actual war begins, a massive movement across the world, millions of people coming out on the streets in 500 cities protesting on the same day against a war that had not yet happened. That has never happened in human history before. And so I knew there was a huge movement. And I knew beyond that, I knew that we were being demonized for speaking out against it. And why? Because they didn't have the truth on their side. And they had to intimidate people into silence. And they were very, very effective in doing that. Not only people like me, celebrities that have access to a microphone, but even more scarily, people in the press whose job it is to ask these questions. People in the major press, New York Times, NBC, CBS, ABC. No one standing in the way of this deception that led to this war, that led to a million people dying in Iraq, a refugee crisis that we're still dealing with now, a destabilization in that region that we're still dealing with right now. Huge, 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 huge mistakes made, right? Guess what? Did we get any apologies for being right?
Right.
Did anyone ever apologize? Did anyone ever say, sorry, we called you a traitor?
Remember, they were calling you traitor? I don't remember that part.
Yeah. No, and worse.
This is a long time ago.
Saddam supporter, terrorist supporter.
Oh, my God.
Because they wanted to intimidate other people into silence, and they were very effective in doing that.
Yeah.
People in my profession that I knew personally that were progressive people that were silent out of self-interest, career survival. You shut up, you'll last a lot longer.
Right.
When it mattered most, right? Which kind of colored the way I look at, when people say that Hollywood's a liberal place. Well, it's not liberal when it has to be. And so a recent incident of that is you look at Chile right now, it's on fire with democracy. These people are, they had 10,000 people, 20,000 people come out against a subway fare hike. The government responds with the military, kills a couple protesters. 3 days later, there's 1 million people on the streets protesting in Santiago. And we had just been down there in January and done a play down there. The Actors Gang had done our play called New Colossus down there.
Yeah.
Holy cow, those people are on fire. They're just, they're really incredible culture, an incredible culture. One of the things that they are doing right now, they have these protests where they block streets. And they have this chant. And they're playing music and they're dancing. And they're saying, the chant is, if you dance, you can pass. If you dance, you can pass. So drivers, if they come up and they need to get through, they have to get out of their car or their truck and dance, and then the people let them through. And this is the spirit of this country. But you're not seeing anything about this in the press here. It's not being reported at all. There's revolutions happening all over South America that you're not reading about. That of people that are indigenous people whose power was stolen from them, being kicked out of the legislature in Bolivia by a right-wing coup. We're not reading any of this. So for me, when people say, liberal Hollywood, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't see it. I just, or maybe that is liberal Hollywood. And maybe I'm not a liberal. Maybe I'm.
Do you feel like it hurt you from a career standpoint at all in the mid 2000s? Did you become too hot to cast or anything?
You see, I can't answer that question.
I don't remember the chronology of all of it.
I can't answer that question definitively because I wouldn't know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are not things that people wear on their sleeve. I proudly, said that Tim Robbins couldn't be in this movie. No one's going to admit to anything like that. If there is a blacklist now, it would not be in the same way it was in the past. Do I live in that space? No, I do not. I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of paranoid thinking, that kind of victimized thinking. I am so lucky to be where I am. I'm so blessed to have the career that I have, the life that I have. I can do things creatively with my theater company. I have a blessed career where I can continue to work in this business and make money.
Yeah.
So there's no complaints here. But the thing is, I get asked that question a lot.
Do you really?
Yeah. No, but has your involvement with various causes affected your career? Yeah. I don't know. I will tell you, I have not starred in a studio movie since I won the Oscar. No. Yeah.
Since 2003.
Since 2003.
So like they're making.
I've done independent movies. I've had starring roles in independent movies,
but they're making like Marvel movie where they need a president. They're not looking for Tim Robbins.
Yeah, or maybe I'm not looking to be the president in a Marvel movie too. I mean, that's part of the equation here too.
Although you got to be a president in Austin Powers movie.
Well, I'd definitely do that again. Austin Powers,
$1 million. How long did you have to work on the Boston accent before you felt good about breaking it out? Mystic River.
So I grew up in New York City, so I already have part of that. Obviously they're not the same.
You've that. It's the attitude part that matters.
Yes,
that's the part everybody misses with the Boston accent. It's got to come from
attitude. It's
anger.
from the streets.
Yeah,
it's from the streets. And so I grew up with that street culture in New York City in the late 60s, early 70s. So all my friends were like, this, so that voice in my head, I can talk like this anytime.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with it. And so Boston's just an adjustment you got to make, which and then I did a Maine accent for this thing called Castle Rock that I'm in right now.
The TV show?
Yeah. It's a Maine.
People
Maine
like
accent.
Castle Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's a good one.
Scary.
Wait, what's a Maine accent?
It's kind of a.
I'm from Massachusetts. I didn't know there was any difference.
It's a little bit longer of an A sound.
It's slower?
A little bit more drawly.
Oh.
But you got to be careful not to go into Southern. But it's got it's a little longer.
Oh, interesting.
Boston.
Because Rhode Island was the one. Rhode Island's like the Boston accent on steroids and PEDs.
Yeah.
It takes it to 19 other levels. But, there's different variations of South Shore, North Shore. Like, I can usually tell for the most part, Rhode Island stands out. Maine, I don't have a lot of familiarity with.
Yeah. Well, it's Pepper Charm remembers. That's the main thing.
Tell me about the new movie.
Dark Waters. So Todd Haynes, great filmmaker.
Yeah.
He's made some amazing films. I get this script. Mark Ruffalo's the star. Read it. I'm totally in. It's a story about this lawyer named Rob Bilott, who was a partner in a very conservative Cincinnati law firm that represented chemical companies. And
you can't spoil the movie, though.
I'm not going to spoil
I have
the
a
movie.
no spoil the movie rule on my podcast.
I will not spoil the movie.
You can set up the movie.
I will set up the movie. I have been programmed. I will not.
I just saw a movie called Waves that was great, and I knew nothing, and it was so refreshing to just experience a movie and not know anything. But this is good.
Okay, so he goes to he's approached by a family friend, a farmer, this is all happening in the first 15 minutes.
Great.
So, I'm not ruining anything.
No.
But his farmer has realized that his land has been polluted, and he wants to know why his cows are dying. And he's got videotape to prove it. And, all these weird things that are happening to his cows. And so he goes to this lawyer who works for a law firm that represents chemical companies and asks him to sue a chemical company, DuPont. And I play Mark Ruffalo's boss, and I see the evidence, and I say, yeah, go ahead and sue them, even though it goes completely against the culture of this law firm. And what happens is you learn in the course of the movie the extent to which DuPont knew how toxic this chemical was, and didn't matter to them. It was too profitable. And
you seem really proud of this one.
Yeah, I am. It is the chemical that is in Teflon. And I remember, when this happened, I got rid of all my Teflon. I had young kids at the time, and holy shit, this is poisoning them.
Yeah.
And, that what happens is over the course of the years, you have, Rob Bilott, this lawyer, it took him 20 years, still working on this. But he had one of the most extensive blood sampling done in this local community in West Virginia 60,000 subjects in this test and definitively proved the link between PFOA, this chemical in Teflon, and 8 separate illnesses, including cancers.
Jesus.
And definitive medical evidence. And still, Teflon is DuPont reneges on the original deal they made and is making him sue individually in order to get settlements. And then eventually, after he did this 5 times, this is now 15 years in, they eventually made a mass settlement. But still, this test, this blood testing they did that proved this connection would be effective for the lives of the subjects, right? So if they get sick later, DuPont is still liable. Well, guess what happened 2 weeks ago? The EPA secretly trying this. The New York Times discovers this memo. The EPA is trying to throw out that medical study.
Ooh.
And not only that medical study, but other medical studies that have been done in the past 30, 40 years that show a link between pollutants and cancer. So essentially, what the EPA is now saying, the Environmental Protection Agency is now saying, is that you have to show me every subject that was in that medical test, and I have to be able to check to see whether that is if that evidence is solid. Now, most of these people in this blood test that Rob Bilott did it under condition of anonymity.
Yeah.
Because they were residents of a town that was basically run by DuPont. And they didn't want DuPont to know that they were participating in the study because they would lose their jobs at DuPont. So anything that's anonymous in the past, now EPA is saying you can throw it out. This is what's happened to our regulation agencies. This is the agency that's supposed to protect our air, our water, and it's actually doing the opposite. It's incredible what's happening right now. Anyway, this movie is a great thriller. It's like, in the tradition of those 70s whistleblower movies.
Those
All
are
the
my
President's
favorite
Men,
movies. I love
Parallax
those
View.
movies.
Yeah. You'll love this.
3 Days of the Condor?
You'll love it. It's really thrilling. Really thrilling.
All right.
3 Days of the Condor, great movie.
So we're coming to the tail end. So we got to talk about the 86 World Series. I'm a Boston fan.
Oh, sorry.
In fact,
I'm
I got
sorry.
to ESPN in 2001. I was writing columns and I was comparing being a Red Sox fan to Shawshank and holding on to hope, even though there's no reason you should have hope and all that stuff and the whole thing. But 86, it damn near ruined me. You're a huge Mets fan, huge Rangers fan.
Yeah.
Are you a Knicks fan or did you divorce the Knicks?
They're really hard to follow. They're really, really hard.
Tough one. So you stayed with the Mets and Rangers.
Yeah.
86 World Series, were you there?
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah.
I figured you were there. I
Game
don't know why.
6, I was at a wedding in Los Angeles listening to it on a radio train.
Wow.
And Game 7, I flew back for, yeah.
And there's a rain delay. So you're able to
And
get
I was,
back
by
in
the
time.
way, I was at the 1969 October 16th game where the Mets won the World Series
Really?
on my birthday, 11th birthday.
Holy shit.
My mom had traveled out on the subway, the 7 train, like 4 o'clock in the morning to get World Series tickets for my birthday, October 16th. Just so happened that was Game 5. Just so happened out of, impossible kind of.
Yeah, and they take care of business in Game 5.
5 games against
Yeah.
the Baltimore Orioles, with Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson. Great,
Unbelievable.
incredible team. And somehow we won it. And I saw it. And I was there when they were tearing up the field and, got some grass and part of the outfield wall on my way home in the subway for someone to
Those are the days when you could win the title and the fans could just go on the field and take stuff.
tear it up. It was complete
It
anarchy.
ended in the late 70s.
And I was
at some
11
point.
years old and I got to the edge of the field and I looked back and my grandmother's like looking at me like, please don't go. I'll never see you again. So, it's a kind man on the way home on the subway gave me part of his.
So is Pete Alonso one of the 5 most important people in your life?
Pete Alonso? No.
The Mets?
No.
No?
Right now?
54 homers?
Well, yeah, but it's not. Okay. I've gotten to a place where I can't allow my emotional health be determined by the sports team I'm following.
Well, that's probably smart.
I've been through too many New York Mets seasons to get too connected to it.
It's been really interesting for me because I have a lot of Mets fans in my life. And when I was in high school, the Mets beat the Red Sox and I was going to school in Connecticut. So I was surrounded by New York fans.
Yeah.
And I felt like they had one over me for the next however many years of my life. And now it's flipped. And it's been interesting to watch the hope getting beaten out of the Mets fans really over the last 15 years, I would say. Where now it's flipped, where they're kind of where I was in 1986, where it's never going to happen. Because it's been 33 years.
I know. And you guys,
it's like 2 generations.
Yeah.
We have somebody, one of the people that runs a ringer with me is a diehard Mets Jets fan who's in he's probably like 36, 37.
That's a special.
So he has no positive memory.
Special form of masochism.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
He remembers nothing good.
I know.
For decades.
I got to see Joe Namath play.
Right.
I saw the playoff game that led to the Super Bowl in Shea Stadium, freezing cold December. I think it was against the Chiefs.
I mean, that's the crazy thing. We have 50 years ago, the Mets and Jets.
Incredible, right?
Think, like, if you told a Mets Jets fan now, like, man, you should have seen when we won titles in the same year. They're like, what?
Yeah. And well, I just did this Castle Rock and I stayed in Boston and got to go to Fenway a few times.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It still has the magic.
It's a shrine. It's a church.
It's great.
It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place. I was so sorry they tore down Shea and Yankee Stadium for that matter. There's something about those old ballparks that is so special. And Boston is such a great city, you know. And I was really happy when the Red Sox won.
Thank you.
For me, it was, I love it anytime a curse is ended. I loved when the Cubs won. I think who's next?
Pretty much all the curses are getting crossed off in baseball.
Yeah.
We have a couple like now we're talking like the Mariners and teams like that, but like the Astros won, the White Sox won, the Cubs won, the Giants won. Like
if the Indians won?
Indians have not won.
Yeah,
but I mean,
they got to change the logo first.
The Cleveland fans were so excited that any team won that I think they're riding the Cavs thing for all 3 teams. But yeah, the Indians are left. There's some good ones, but all the OGs have kind of taken care of business.
Yeah, and that's and I got to go to a couple games this summer in Fenway, and I really enjoyed that team, and then they just they couldn't rise up when they needed to. But
no,
yeah, it's got a lot of potential. That
team. It's funny. The Dodgers and the Mets, where now you're talking about 2 generations of fans basically that don't remember anything good, or maybe even 3. But the Dodgers, the '88 Kirk Gibson, but they've probably had the roughest decade of any baseball team by far,
because they get so close.
Yeah,
and they can
7 straight years of this is the year, and then they get kicked in the nuts, which is the whole Red Sox thing.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, the Red Sox, it was like every year. I shouldn't talk myself into this. I'm kind of talking myself into it, and then we just get kicked in the teeth.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I kind of feel that way about the Rangers. They're getting close, and it's just not happening. And I was glad though that the Blues won.
That was a monkey off the back.
That was a monkey off the back. Yeah. And I know John Davison a little bit, and because the work that he had done at that franchise, and and then later at the Columbus Blue Jackets, So I think he's working with the Rangers now, and so I hope that'll we'll start to see the effects.
Feels like the fumes of the '94 Cup can go for another 5-6 years.
Nope.
No,
I need it now.
You need it now.
I need it now. I drank from the cup that night.
Seriously?
Yeah, I seriously did. And
I had you in the locker room?
Well, no. I did not have an in. The reason I got tickets for that game was I had flown out to Vancouver for Game 6.
Yeah.
Because I was obsessed, and I've been a Ranger fan all my life. And on the plane was Gary Bettman and Brian Burke, who were the head of NHL. And so they got me tickets for Game 7. So I went with my college roommate who, we, at the end of the game, we heard this rumor that the Cup was going to be down at Tribeca. So we go down to Tribeca. We figure it's got to be at one of the popular bars down there. Nothing happening. Have a drink. Get in a cab, say, take us to the Cup. Cab takes us to Upper West Side, thinks he knows where it is, drives around. It's like 45 minutes later. He doesn't know where it is. We say, let us out. Get out of the cab. Hail down one more cab. Next cab. Take us to the Cup. Oh, yeah, I know where it is. Takes us right over. And it's the east side, right? We've been looking on the wrong side of town. Finds the police stanchions, everything. We got our Ranger gear on, go up to the stanchion, wanted to be recognized for the first time in my life by the cops. I just hey, can I get past? The guy recognized me, says, go ahead. I get to the door of the club. It's the bouncers that's dressed really well. They say, well, you can't come in here with that jersey on. This is a fancy party. And then the other bouncer goes, wait a second. That dude was wearing the Ranger blue in Vancouver. I saw him on the television. You know, we had worn our jerseys in Vancouver and gotten pelted with stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know,
Vancouver, vicious fans.
Yeah. So that was my way in. And so I got into this party with my friend, my college roommate. And an hour later, Messier walks in with the cup. And 20 minutes after that, I'm drinking from it. And 5:30 in the morning, I remember vague memories of the New York City Police Department bagpipe band playing in the morning as the sun rose over Manhattan. It's
My
quite
God.
a surreal,
so you
amazing
filmed
night.
Shawshank the same year you drank from the Rangers Stanley Cup?
That's right.
That's
right.
unbelievable.
Yeah. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Dream come true.
That's a good
Dream
way to
come
end the
true.
podcast.
Yeah.
This was fun. Tim Robbins, good luck with the movie. I'm glad we finally did this.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Thanks so much to State Farm. Thanks to Simply Safe. Comprehensive professional home security at fair price. Right now, it's the best time of the year, especially for one of my listeners to get a Simply Safe security system. My listeners get a free security camera plus a huge discount on your security system. Visit simplysafe.com/BS for a free camera plus Simply Safe's holiday savings, limited time only offer, ending soon. Simply Safe with 2 eyes, simplysafe.com/BS. And thanks to Square, the company that makes that little white Square credit card reader. They also make pretty much anything you need to run and grow any kind of business, point of sale, payroll, online stores, invoices, and whatever you need. See how Square can take your business from square one to whatever's next at square.com/go/BS. Coming back on Thursday with one more podcast this week. We'll do a little NBA. We'll do a little NFL red hot $1 million picks right now. Until then.